Something about this story feels harmless at first, almost forgettable. A quiet road, endless green hills, a sleepy little town that looks like it was frozen in time. The kind of place where nothing ever happens, until you realize that's exactly the lie it survives on. What begins as a simple creative trip slowly mutates into something far darker, peeling back layers that were never meant to be touched. And the deeper you go, the more uncomfortable it gets. Because this isn't just a mystery waiting to be solved. It's a truth that was carefully buried. And once it starts surfacing, there's no stopping what comes with it. The drive into Loch Henry doesn't feel like the beginning of a horror story. It feels like the start of something peaceful. Endless stretches of green, quiet roads that seem untouched by time, and a calmness that almost feels artificial. It's the kind of place filmmakers dream of capturing, and the kind of place audiences instantly trust. And that's exactly why it works so well. Davis and Pia arrive like outsiders stepping into a postcard. They've been on the road long enough for Pia to fall asleep, resting against him while the landscape rolls by like a moving painting. But the moment they pull up to the house, that calm atmosphere subtly cracks. There's no dramatic shift, no loud warning, just a feeling. Something slightly off. Janet stands in the doorway waiting. It's not what she says, it's how she says it. There's a stiffness in her posture, arms crossed like she's bracing for something. Her expression doesn't match the situation. This isn't the warm welcome you'd expect from a mother seeing her son after a long time. It feels cautious, like she's studying Pia rather than greeting her. Davis brushes it off instantly, explaining they took the long route to enjoy the scenery. But Janet's reaction lingers. There's a pause just long enough to feel uncomfortable. Then she comments on Pia in a way that sounds polite on the surface, but carries something else underneath. Subtle, awkward, slightly out of place. It's the first signal this town isn't as simple as it looks. Inside the house, that feeling deepens. The space is quiet, almost too quiet, decorated with small personal details that hint at a life paused rather than lived. Photos of Davis's father, Kenny, sit nearby, frozen moments of someone who feels more like a story than a real memory. And then there's the mask. It hangs there casually, like any other decoration. Red, striking, impossible to ignore. It doesn't belong with the rest of the house, but no one explains it. Pia notices it immediately, but the moment passes without discussion. Just another small detail filed away, waiting to matter later. Dinner brings the real purpose of their visit into focus. They're not just here to reconnect, they're working. Both of them are film students, chasing the kind of project that might finally put them on the map. Their idea? A niche, almost pretentious documentary about a man who protects rare bird eggs from poachers. It's the kind of concept that sounds meaningful, but feels disconnected. Even Janet doesn't fully understand it. Pia tries to explain, adding her own spin, but her comments about the police, casual, almost offhand, land wrong. The shift is immediate. Janet tenses, her tone tightening as she defends them. It's not just a disagreement, it's personal, and that's when the missing piece clicks into place. Kenny wasn't just Davis's father, he was a police officer. Suddenly, Janet's reactions make sense. The sensitivity, the tension, the way certain topics seem to hit harder than they should. Pia realizes it too, but too late. The damage is already done. Later that night, away from Janet, the atmosphere softens, but only slightly. Pia feels like she's already made the wrong impression, replaying every moment in her head. Davis reassures her, but even he seems distant when it comes to his father. Because the truth is, Kenny isn't really a memory to him. He died when Davis was young, too young to truly know him. What's left behind are fragments, stories, photographs, not a relationship, just an idea of one. And that absence lingers in the house, in Janet, in everything. But the tone shifts again, this time in a way that feels almost jarring. The camera appears, old, forgotten, sitting quietly in the corner like a relic from another time. Pia picks it up out of curiosity, noticing there's no tape inside. It's a meaningless detail in the moment, but like everything else in this house, it doesn't feel accidental. Nothing here does. That night continues with a strange duality. Intimacy on one side, isolation on the other. While Davis and Pia laugh, flirt, and try to enjoy the moment, Janet lies awake in the next room. Silent, still, listening, not reacting, just aware. By morning, reality sets back in. No signal, no internet. The outside world feels completely cut off. It's not just remote, it's disconnected. And that isolation starts to matter more than it initially seemed. With nothing else to do, Pia explores. And that's when she finds them. Stacks of VHS tapes, not movies, not labeled in any way that suggests entertainment. Just recordings, dates, titles that don't quite make sense. There are too many of them to ignore, and yet Davis dismisses them casually. Old shows, nothing important. But the quantity alone tells a different story. These weren't just watched, they were collected, preserved, and whatever they contain, it mattered enough to keep. The two head out toward the town, stepping back into that same quiet emptiness that greeted them before. But now it feels heavier. The beauty is still there, but it's starting to feel hollow, like a surface layer hiding something underneath. Because there's one question that refuses to go away. Why is a place this beautiful completely empty? The answer comes slowly, not from Davis, but from someone who never left. Stuart. He's loud, crude, and completely different from Davis in every way. Where Davis feels restrained, Stuart is unfiltered. Where Davis avoids the past, Stuart leans into it. Their dynamic immediately reveals something important. This town didn't just shape people, it trapped them in different ways. Their conversation starts casually, filled with jokes and awkward humor. But it doesn't stay there for long, because Pia asks the question again. Why is no one here? And this time, she gets an answer. Not softened, not avoided, just dropped, blunt and heavy. Everything changed because of one person, Ian Adair. A name that shifts the entire tone of the story the moment it's spoken. The air in the room changes. Davis looks down. Stuart looks at him like he already knows. This conversation was inevitable. And without hesitation, the truth begins to surface. A quiet boy. Nothing remarkable. Until he was. What follows isn't told like a mystery. There's no slow build, no attempt to ease into it. It's direct. Brutal. Matter of fact. The kind of story that feels worse because of how plainly it's delivered. Tourists came, and then they disappeared. No struggle, no signs, just gone. At first it was easy to ignore. This place is isolated, dangerous if you don't know it well. People get lost, accidents happen. That's what everyone believed, until the pattern became impossible to deny. And by the time anyone realized what was really happening, it was already too late. The story doesn't unfold like a warning. It lands like a confession that's been waiting years to be heard. Back in 1997, Loch Henry wasn't empty. It was alive. Tourists came for the views, the quiet, the charm of a place untouched by modern chaos. Couples, hikers, travelers passing through. It had everything a hidden gem needs to thrive. And for a while, it did. Until one couple never left. They arrived like anyone else. Stayed in a small cottage, met locals, blended into the rhythm of the town. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. And then, suddenly, nothing at all. Their belongings were still there, clothes, luggage, even their car. But them? Gone without a trace. That's when Kenny stepped in. As a local police officer, he did what anyone in his position would do. He started asking questions, knocking on doors, reconstructing timelines, trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense. But the deeper he looked, the less clear things became. Because it wasn't just one disappearance. There were others, not obvious at first, scattered cases, easy to dismiss. A hiker who never returned, a traveler who must have gotten lost. Each one explained away by the landscape itself. This place was wild, unpredictable, dangerous if you didn't know it. That explanation worked, until it didn't. Because when a honeymooning couple vanishes, it doesn't stay quiet. It becomes a story, and stories attract attention. Media swarmed the town, cameras, reporters, headlines. Loch Henry was suddenly everywhere, a mystery people couldn't stop talking about. But just as quickly as it rose, it disappeared again. overshadowed by something bigger, something global. And just like that, the town was left in silence again. But the truth didn't disappear with the headlines. It was sitting right there, in plain sight. Ian Adair, not a stranger, not an outsider, someone everyone knew. Quiet, awkward, the kind of person you don't think twice about, which is exactly why no one ever suspected him, until he made a mistake. One night, drunk and careless, Ian started talking. Not clearly, not directly, but enough. Enough to make people uncomfortable. Enough to raise questions that shouldn't have been raised. And that's all it took. Kenny went to check on him. It should have been routine, a simple visit, a conversation. But nothing about what followed was routine. A gunshot from the window. Kenny drops, wounded, crawling back toward his car, radioing for help. And then, 3 more shots echo from inside the house. Silence. By the time backup arrived, it was already over. Ian had killed his parents, and then himself. Case closed, or at least that's what it looked like. Because inside the house, hidden behind something as ordinary as a wardrobe, they found the truth. A bunker, not abandoned, not forgotten, used. What was inside wasn't just disturbing, it was methodical. Tools, equipment, evidence of something prolonged, something intentional. This wasn't a crime of impulse, it was a system, a routine. Ian hadn't just killed people, he had kept them. For days, maybe longer. The missing tourists weren't lost, they weren't accidents, they were victims. Part of something far worse than anyone in that town had imagined. 8 bodies were eventually accounted for. And just like that, Loch Henry became something else entirely. Not a destination, a warning. Tourists stopped coming, businesses shut down. The life drained out of the place, leaving behind only those who had nowhere else to go. People like Stuart, people like Janet, people like Davis, whether he realized it or not. And standing in the middle of it all, hearing this story for the first time, Pia doesn't react the way you'd expect. She doesn't pull away. She leans in. There's something in her expression, not fear, not even shock. Curiosity, a spark. The kind that doesn't come from empathy, but from opportunity. Because where others see tragedy, she sees a story. And not just any story, the kind that gets attention, the kind that gets funding, the kind that people can't stop watching. Davis feels it immediately, that shift. The moment this stops being about understanding what happened and starts becoming something else entirely, something exploitative. He tries to ground it, to remind her what this really is. This isn't some distant case study, it's his life, his family, his father. But Pia doesn't step back. If anything, she pushes further. The house, the bunker, the victims, the mystery, it's all there, waiting to be turned into something bigger, something important, something that people will care about. At least, that's how she frames it. But Davis hears what's underneath, content. And there's a difference. He resists at first, tries to hold on to the original plan, the documentary about the egg protector. Safe, detached, meaningful in a way that doesn't hurt anyone. But compared to what Pia is proposing, it feels small, insignificant. And that's the problem. Because once you've seen something darker, it's hard to go back to something lighter. Pia doesn't let it go. She reframes it, reshapes it, makes it sound necessary. This isn't exploitation, it's exposure. It's giving a voice to victims. It's telling the truth. All the right words, all the right intentions. But none of it changes what it really is. Davis knows it will destroy his mother. That alone should be enough to stop it. But Pia counters even that, turning Janet into part of the narrative. Not just collateral damage, but a character, a victim in her own way. It's persuasive, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because slowly, almost without realizing it, Davis starts to give in. Not fully, not confidently, but enough. Enough to take the next step. They go back to the house, not as visitors, as filmmakers. And suddenly, everything changes. The boarded-up structure that once represented something tragic now becomes something cinematic. A location, a set piece, a backdrop for a story they're about to tell. Pia stands there, looking at it like she's already imagining the final cut. The angles, the tone, the impact. To her, it's perfect. To Davis, it's something else entirely. A place where his father almost died. A place tied to everything he never fully understood. And now, they're about to walk back into it. Not for closure, not for truth, but for a film. From that moment on, the line between storytelling and exploitation doesn't just blur, it disappears completely. What starts as hesitation quickly turns into momentum. Once Davis says yes, even reluctantly, everything accelerates. The plan shifts overnight. The egg documentary is forgotten like it never mattered, replaced by something darker, heavier, and far more compelling. And Pia thrives in it. There's a visible change in her energy. She's sharper, more focused, more alive. This is what she wanted all along, something real, something raw, something that people won't be able to look away from. And now she has it. With Stewart on board, the project gains something even more valuable than access: enthusiasm. Unlike Davis, Stewart doesn't carry emotional weight tied to the story. To him, this is opportunity. A way to revive the town, bring people back, put Loch Henry on the map again. It's not about the victims, it's about what comes after. And that mindset quietly spreads. They begin gathering material: old tapes, archived footage, newspaper clippings. Stewart hands over his mother's collection without hesitation, treating it like it's nothing more than background research. But the way it's preserved, the care put into keeping it all, it suggests something deeper. This wasn't just history, it was obsession. Back at the house, Davis and Pia start digitizing everything. Old VHS tapes flicker to life on modern screens, the past literally being converted into something usable, something presentable, something that can be edited, shaped, controlled. And that's the key difference. The truth doesn't stay the truth for long once it's in their hands. It becomes a narrative. Interviews follow. Stewart sits in front of the camera, retelling the story with a mix of humor and detachment that feels almost inappropriate, but also completely natural for someone who's lived with it for years. For him, it's normalized. The horror has dulled over time, reduced to anecdotes and dark jokes, until Richard hears it. The reaction is immediate. Anger. Sharp, unfiltered, impossible to ignore. He doesn't see this as storytelling. He sees it as digging up something that should have stayed buried, something that never needed to be turned into content. And for a moment, it feels like he knows more than he's saying. But no one stops, not even Davis, because by now, he's too far in. They keep filming, shooting scenic drone footage over mountains and rivers, capturing the same beauty that once drew tourists in the first place. It's ironic. These shots will eventually be used to package a story about unimaginable brutality. But that contrast? It sells. Everything begins to come together. The structure, the tone, the aesthetic. Even the small details, Davis choosing to shoot parts on old equipment to recreate that authentic analog feel. Grainy textures layered over clean footage, past and present blending into something designed to feel real, even if it's been carefully constructed. And somewhere in the middle of all this progress, something starts to crack. Richard falls. A sudden, violent interruption that breaks the rhythm of everything they've been building. He collapses down the stairs, injured, shaken, but more than that, desperate. Because when he speaks, it's not just anger anymore. It's fear. He calls Stewart a parasite, accuses them of dragging something back into the light that should never have been touched. And when he turns to Davis, there's something almost pleading in his voice. Why are you doing this? It's a simple question, but Davis doesn't have a clear answer. Not anymore. Because it's not just about the film. It's about recognition, validation, the thing he's been chasing since the beginning. And now that it's within reach, walking away doesn't feel like an option, even if it should be. The next step takes them deeper than anything before. Back to the house. Not just the surface this time, but inside. They break in. Quietly, carefully, like they already know they shouldn't be there. The air inside feels different, stale, heavy, untouched. Whatever happened here may be over, but it hasn't left. And when they find the hidden entrance, everything slows. This is it. The place where it happened. The bunker. It's empty now, cleared out, sanitized, stripped of anything official. But the absence of evidence doesn't erase what's still there, because some things don't need to be visible to be felt. Stewart tries to stage it, fake details, add atmosphere, turn it into something more cinematic. But the moment he switches on the blacklight, they realize they don't need to. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, it's everywhere. Traces of what happened here, still embedded in the space itself. Invisible to the naked eye, but undeniable once revealed. And suddenly it's not a story anymore, it's real. For the first time since this began, all three of them go quiet. No jokes, no ideas, no excitement, just understanding. This isn't something you recreate. This isn't something you dramatize. This is something that actually happened. And for a brief moment, it feels like they might stop. Like maybe this is where the line gets drawn. But it doesn't last, because Pia speaks first. Not about what they've just seen, not about what it means. Just one thing. Let's keep going. And just like that, the moment passes. They finish what they came to do, pack up, leave, carrying that experience with them, but not in the way they should. Not as something to process, but as something to use. Even the drive back feels off. There's a tension in the air, something unspoken hanging between them. Stewart laughs it off, trying to lighten the mood. Jokes about turning the whole thing into a tourist attraction, about how people would actually pay to see this. It sounds absurd, until you realize he's not entirely wrong. Because that's exactly what this project is becoming. Not remembrance, not justice, attraction. And then, in a split second, everything changes. A turn taken too fast, a blind corner, impact. The crash doesn't just interrupt the moment, it shatters it. Metal twisting, bodies jolting, everything coming to an abrupt, violent stop. For a second, there's nothing but silence. And somehow, they survive. Bruised, shaken, but alive. It should feel like relief. Instead, it feels like a warning, one that no one is ready to listen to. The aftermath doesn't slow things down. It quietly tightens everything. With Davis stuck in the hospital overnight, the story splits. For the first time, Pia is alone in that house. Alone with Janet. Alone with everything they've been digging into. And that's when the illusion finally breaks. It starts small. Background footage playing. A tape left running a little too long. Something that wasn't meant to be seen, slipping through by accident. But once it appears, there's no mistaking it. The same bunker, the same space they just stood in. Except now it's alive. And what Tia sees isn't history, it's proof. Raw, undeniable, horrifying proof that Ian Adair wasn't alone. The camera turns, and suddenly Davis's father is there. Not as a victim, not as a hero, as part of it, smiling, performing, enjoying it. And then Janet steps into frame. Different, unrecognizable, alive in a way she never is in the present. The mask, the energy, the way she moves. It's not someone forced into darkness. It's someone who belongs to it. Everything clicks at once. The tapes, the comments, the tension, the way she talked about the past, not with grief, but with something disturbingly close to nostalgia. This wasn't something that happened to her. It was something she lost. And Pia is sitting in the same house, across the table, from that truth. From here, it unravels fast. There's no confrontation, no dramatic confession, just realization and fear. Pia tries to leave, tries to escape quietly, but Janet already knows. That shift in her expression says everything. The politeness is gone. What's left is control. The chase that follows isn't loud or chaotic, it's cold, focused, and it ends not with a struggle, but with something almost meaningless. A single misstep, a fall, and just like that, Pia is gone. Not killed by a person, but by the same environment they were trying to package into a story. Back at the house, Janet doesn't panic for long. There's a brief crack, then acceptance. She knows what this leads to, and instead of running, she prepares. The tapes, the evidence, the memories, all laid out. And then, one final decision, on her terms. Months later, the film is complete, polished, structured, marketed perfectly. It has everything: archival footage, Emotional weight, shocking revelations, even a tragic ending that no one saw coming. It wins, awards, recognition, attention, everything Davis thought he wanted. But when he stands there, holding that success, there's nothing behind it. No pride, no relief, just silence. Because now he knows what it cost. His girlfriend, his mother, his entire understanding of who his family was. All of it traded for a story people can watch, analyze, and move on from. And that's the real point this episode leaves behind. Not the murders, not the twist, but the uncomfortable truth that stories like this don't just reveal reality, they consume it. And the people closest to it are always the ones who pay the highest price. If this story stayed with you, hit like, share it with someone who loves deep breakdowns like this, and subscribe for more. And tell me this, if you were in Davis's place, would you have finished the film or walked away before it destroyed everything?